Hi, this is Steve, and today I'll be doing a uh, overview of the K1 visa process. Thanks for watching. If you are not a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button below and follow this channel. Uh, what I'll also be doing is comparing the K1 visa process to the CR1 visa process. Uh, as always, I will let you know I'm not an attorney. What I'm sharing is from my own experience. Other people's experiences could be different. Feel free to ask me any questions you would like in the chat, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. So first of all, let's start with the K1 visa. What it does is it allows the holder to enter the VC or enter the USA and visit up to 90 days. The eligibility in become eligible for a permanent residency. If the wedding occurs within the first 90 days, the person that is getting married from another country is eligible to apply for a change in uh, it's called a change in adjustment or adjustment of status. They're able to adjust from a temporary K1 visa to a permanent resident. The ID card that your spouse receives uh, says she's legally permitted to stay. It's called a green card. The K1 visa itself is only valid for 6 months from when they come to the country. So if she comes into the country, the fiance only has 6 months. If she doesn't use it or you don't get married, then she has to go back. That's for her to come here. She has 6 months to use it. So once she's here, she only has 90 days for you to get married. So once it's issued, she has 6 months to travel to the United States. Once she's here, you have 90 days to get married before being able to making a change of adjustment. Hopefully that makes sense. The other one that we're going to talk about is a CR1 spousal visa. And that's for permanent immigration to the U.S. Too. It's valid for 6 months, allows the holder to enter and reside here permanently. The the thing about the CR1 that's nice is you don't have to change. There's no adjustment status for that. Once she comes, she gets her green card, or he, on the day they arrive into the United States. So hopefully that will clear up some. So I'm going to do a comparison of the costs right now. So if you, I will try to get this in the uh, comments below as soon as this stream is over. But for a K1 visa, you have a total time, usually from start to finish, is 8 to 10 months. Works the CR1 process, it's usually between 14 to 18 months. Now with COVID, that's all changed. I still am awaiting my fiance to come, and it's been a year. Uh, and that's because the embassy in Ukraine is not processing K1 visas right now. It has nothing to do with any of the proclamations that Trump has signed. It's the fact that they just aren't processing any K1 visas. Same with Russia. Other countries are processing K1 visa. So it's just a difference, and each individual consulate and embassy is able to make their own rules on that. So when you guys do this, it usually, the first part of it is called a I-129 form for a K1 visa, or an I-130 form for a CR1 visa. Now those usually take 6 to 8 months to get those approved, and that's approved by the Department of Homeland Security. The UCIS is the United States Immigration Customs uh, Center. So that's what the acronym stands for. So again, usually takes 6 to 8 months to do that. And then from there, it goes to the National Visa Center. National Visa Center is in New Hampshire. And that's where, once the Department of Homeland Security okays everything, then it goes to the National Visa Center for further evaluation. Once it goes there, for a K1 visa, it usually takes around a month, and then it's sent to the embassy or consulate wherever, whichever country your fiance is from. If you do the CR1, it can stay there 5 to 6 months on average. It just all depends. Now, once they are cleared through the NVC, or the National Visa Center, it can usually take time once it gets to the consulate. It takes about 2 months for that, and that time varies. For me, it's been over 4 months, and they're blaming COVID for all that. And what ends up happening is, this is not an electronic deal. What happens is, these things are almost like FedEx to each consulate several times a week, and it takes a while for them to get the couriered documents from New Hampshire. So sometimes, again, the processing is quicker, sometimes it's not. Eligibility, you have to be a US citizen for that. If you are looking for a CR1, you have to be a US resident alien or a citizen. You have to be both available to marry. For the K1, you have to be legally or engaged, and you'll have to show proof of that. And for the CR1, you have to be legally married and have a actual certificate from a country that is accepted, that says you're legally married. So in the United States, the K1 visa, the sponsor has to be able to show that they make $17,240. For the resident, or for the CR1, the person has to make $21,550. I don't know where they get those amounts from, but those are the amounts for that. Dependents are also charged, or you have to have an additional funds for that. For dependent, you have to have, in the K1 process, you have to make an additional $4,480, and in the CR1, you have to make an additional $5,600. So it varies then as far as you keep advancing with more children. With a K1 visa, excuse me, you have to meet face-to-face within 2 years. That's one thing that they're going to check. They're going to ask for proof of, and I'll talk later about how you do that and how I went about doing that. When you are in CR1, you have to have a bona fide relationship. What they mean is, people have to be legally married. There's got to be a history there, and you're going to have to document that history of your marriage. The fees, I'll go over the fees. For the K1 visa, the I-129F form, it has a filing fee of $535. In Ukraine, the medical cost for your fiance to go to get her medicals is $195. The consulate fee for when she comes and gets her interview and her actual visa costs $265. All that has to be paid up front. So when you go through this process, you decide on the K1 visa, you actually have to have the money deposited in the account in Ukrainian money, the $265, and you print off a ticket that wherever bank you take it to in Ukraine, there's plenty of them that accept it, will stamp it and say you paid the money. That has to be done before any interview is scheduled. So the total cost is $995 for just the K1 visa itself. For the CR1, we'll go over those fees. This also includes the permanent residency card, which I'll also talk about in the K1 visa. The I-130 form is $535. You have to have a National Visa Senate affidavit of support, which is a file you just print off and sign. That costs $120. A National Visa Center immigrant processing fee, which is $325. And of course, the medical, again, it's the same cost for anyone. It's $195 for adults. And for children, it varies. Depending if they're newborn, it's less. If it's 2 to 14, it's more. They also check for shots, that kind of thing. There's also, with the CR1, a US CIS immigrant fee of $220. So, and then when you go back, the total cost of that is, for CR1, is $1,540. Now that is including the green card. So when she comes to the United States, she gets her green card the first day she's here. She's eligible to work. Now in the K1 process, if you look at that, all those things, $995 I talked about going into the process, then once you're approved, you spend that money and she comes over here, within 90 days you marry, then you have to do an adjustment and file for her green card. So that cost is an additional $1,225. So when you compare this cost, the green card for a K1 visa and everything in that ends up costing around $2,220. And for the CR1, it ends up costing $1,540. Dependent children, those can be added with the CR1. There's an additional filing fee for $535. For the K1 visa, you have to fill out separate forms, which are called K2, and those are also require an additional filing fee. For the medical, 0 to 2 is $155, and for ages 3 to 14, it's $225. In the CRV, children, you have to do CR1, excuse me, the processing fee is $325. So they nickel and dime you the whole way through this process. So it all depends on which process you take. The CR1 is a little bit less expensive overall for the green card, but what it does give you is the ability to meet your fiance, have her check out where you live, how you she can see how you live, see where you live, and make sure that this is the right decision for both of you. For Ukrainian ladies, they're giving up a lot of different things to come to the United States. Most likely they're giving up their career, and yes, they don't make a lot of money, but it is hard to find a job in Ukraine. So please make sure that when you do this, you're making the right decision for you and your fiance or wife. If you don't get it approved, you have to appeal it. That's going to cost more money. I have a question here. I'll shoot that and show that. What's the difference between consulate and embassy, and who's holding up the process? Is it the US or Ukraine? The difference is the consulate and embassy are one and the same. It's large. Where the United States has friendly ties, we have more or less embassies. Consulates are almost the same thing, but they're smaller. They're also around in throughout the country. So embassies are most of the time in the capital cities. The consulates can be in different cities throughout. So like in Russia, for example, they have the embassy in Moscow, but they have a consulate in St. Petersburg. So there's other places that people can go to get this paperwork done. And the question is who's holding it up, the U.S. or Ukraine? It's the United States. Right now, that's the biggest issue I'm having is their refusal to issue the K1 visas and issue the appointments necessary for that. So thank you for that question. And I'll go back through again. If you have questions, feel free to put them up and I will try to answer them as I'm going through this. So difference, K1 visa, you're both free to marry, you both intend to marry, but you haven't gotten yet. CR1 is you're already married. So again, the K1 visa, it gives her 90 days, meet your family, meet your friends, see where you live, see if this is something she wants to do. For my fiance, for example, she's coming from a city of 6 million people to a city of 50,000 people. That's going to be a experience for her. She's actually, I've done a lot of live streaming with her and shown her the city and all that, but of course being here is completely different. So you know, that's the biggest thing, is making sure she's comfortable with that, or he, and you are ready to go forward with the process. If you have any questions about your relationship, you just aren't sure, you need to do the K1 visa versus the CR1 visa. Because if you do the CR1, you're married legally. What that ends up is, even if you're separated, she refuses to come here, you have to go through, get a divorce, have that recognized. And while that's happening, of course, you can't remarry if you found someone in the United States or found a different area or person to marry. So these are life-altering steps, especially for people from a different country, different culture. So you got to make sure that you're doing everyone right when you go through this process. So also with the K1 visa, you have to meet face-to-face. It doesn't count webcam, it doesn't count Skype calls, it doesn't consider telephone calls. You have to be physically have met face-to-face. They call it breathing the same air. So, which of course in COVID you probably don't want to do anyway, but that's the essence of what they are looking for in that. So after you meet, you decide to get married, you get engaged, then you start your I-129F paperwork and application to Homeland Security. So when you do that, the next form she has to do, and she has to do this, is called a form DS-160. It's an online non-immigrant visa application. So they have to do that online, and then you're able to print that confirmation, and you bring that to the interview. Have another question here. Is the lady's interview before or after the K1 visa is issued or approved? The K1 visa is approved by the Department of Homeland Security, but it gets issued by the actual embassy where it is. What they're doing is they go through 3 different checks to make sure there's no fraud. So first is the I-129F form, then you go through and do the National Visa Center where they do the background checks, and then the interview process. And so if there's any fishy things going on, you don't have the right evidence that they're looking for, they also do give you a checklist to do that, then you're able to, they're able to deny the visa, and then you do have to appeal after that. And I certainly hope that would not be something anyone would go through, because it is a lot of work. Now, with the I-129F form, which is the first form, there's a lot of different things. It is very expensive to have an attorney go through all of this and put it together. The cost I received when I went and talked to a different lawyer was around $10,000 to do that. So when that's real expensive. So how I did it is I completed the 129F form, and then I took it and had an attorney review it. Because if you do it wrong and it gets kicked back, then it's going to be 2 to 3 more weeks of uh, this kind of gray area while they review, they send it to you. You have to make sure it gets sent back and corrected the errors the way they wanted to, and it's just not a lot of fun. So I spent, I want to say $200 to go to the attorney, have him read and look through the application, make sure I had everything correctly filled out, and then I went and sent it to the lockbox location, which is in Texas. Uh, Now, when you do send it, not that the U.S. mail department would ever lose mail, but I put it in a priority mail envelope and sent it so I could get a tracking number that it showed up. So from there, what happens is everything that's in your I-129 and any kind of evidence that you have with that gets scanned into the system there it's near Dallas, Texas, from what I understand. So what do you include in that? Well, for the I-29F and probably the one I-30, what you need to do is show proof of your relationship. So how do you do that? Well, you show copies of your hotel bills that you had in Kiev. You show copies of your passport that you've been there several times. You show pictures. You show, I sent in a whole bunch of receipts from Uber, anything that will place me in the city at the time. So when they're going through all the different evidence, they can see a timeline and when I was there, and uh, make sure they have everything there for processing. Now, the one thing I did not do because I just didn't think of it was take a whole bunch of pictures. I had a few, but not nearly as many as the attorney when I went through it would have liked me to have. He said it's important to have different photos in different outfits, so it's appears to be different days, all that. I had that as far as I had some photos of us in a restaurant. It was the same restaurant twice, but we were dressed differently. So I also had a timestamp on the photos that showed the date and time. It was in US time, so it looked like it was early in the morning, but regardless, it worked for them. So let me go get back to the K1 visa process. So what ends up happening is you do the I-129F form, then she does the form DS-160. And what this is, the DS-160 is just pretty much a basic visa application with that. So what they need to do with that is make sure you do it online and then you submit it, print out the confirmation page. That needs to go in your file for when you go to the interview. And now, what they also ask for in the interview, and I sent it via the first form, which is the 129F, is I sent in all my financials with that. So they require 3 years of tax returns. I had them done. I just included that. I put in all my pictures. I put everything that either the National Visa Center, the Department of Homeland Security, or the people in the embassy would require and have it uploaded for their viewing pleasure, as you will. What they told me is more information is better. So it's better to just have all that information in there for the first time versus trying to have them come back and ask you for different pieces of information, and then that slows down your whole process. So hopefully that will help. One thing you also has to have is their passport. So my fiance's passport has to be valid for at least 6 months beyond when she is traveling to the United States. So I'm still waiting. Luckily, she has a couple more years on her passport, so that's not going to be an issue. Another thing you have to have when submitting all this is birth certificates, both her birth certificate and your birth certificate. So if you have those, you make copies and put those in your packets. When she goes to the interview, she will have to have an actual birth certificate of herself with her, along with pictures, two small passport type pictures that will be used for the visa itself. You also have, if she's been married before, she has to have a certificate of divorce, or if the person had died, a certificate saying that they're able to remarry, pretty much a death certificate of her former spouse. The other thing that is a little different is you have to have a police certificate. What I mean by a police certificate is Ukraine, you had to go to, it's a different kind of city or state. I can't remember what the actual name of it is, but the ladies will know what it is, and you have to request a certificate that states pretty much that they've never been in trouble, or if they have been in trouble, what the charges were, in anything like that. For my fiance, she had a very clean record. There's nothing in there at all. So what it is a certificate, and those are only usually good for about 3 months. So this is something you need to wait for having her get when you actually know or have a good idea of when the interview is. For example, I waited till the National Visa Center actually forwarded her stuff to the consulate or to the embassy, and then I had her go in and do that. Now they are free. If you need them fast, you usually can grease someone's palm to get it done real fast. But as you know, Ukraine has a little history of corruption. My fiance was asked for some additional money to make sure it got done. She did not do that the first time. The second time she came back, a different person asked her for that, and I ended up sending an email to our senator, and he helped make sure that this got through. So when you set an appointment, or when you get the appointment for the K1 visa, the next thing they're going to do is tell her to have a medical exam. Now, a medical exam will it's to check to make sure she doesn't have any venereal diseases, anything that is from a different, from, make sure she's immune pretty much to everything. Now, I will say what we did, records in Ukraine are very poor, if not non-existent. So you have to, usually what we did is I paid for her to get a titer test. And what that is it's a blood test that checks immunity and shows everything she's immune to, which is the proof they need for that she had the shots when she was younger, because it's very difficult to find those records if they have them. And you end up having to do this anyway. So it's better to have it done earlier than later. So when you go in, your fiance isn't a pincushion in getting all these extra shots that are very expensive that you have to enter the United States. So the last thing, and this is for both the CR1 and the K1, is an evidence of financial support and an affidavit of support, as it is. So that has to be included with your tax returns. And what it is pretty much saying that you will support her and she doesn't become public charge. So if something were to happen, you're more or less on the hook for her. So that's why some people prefer the K1 process, make sure they go through it. And yes, it right now takes a little bit longer, but if there are any red flags, then you're not making a big mistake with someone. So I have another question here. Let me show that. Are there agencies that help you with the K1 process if you pay for their service travel on tours? Yes, some are, and some, it depends. For most people that speak good English, the forms are not difficult. They're pretty straightforward. It just asks a lot of questions: where you live, where her address is, her parents' names, just simple things like that. It's not something that should cost the money it does, but I can see where people, if they don't speak fluent English, would have problems with the form. There are agencies out there, like, for example, the other person that I know that just got married through a match guarantee, they use Rapid Visa. That's a very good alternative if you don't want to do it yourself, or you go through the situation and you are unsure, you know what to do, or you want to fill everything out yourself. So that is a company that's a alternative to doing it. As far as, I was at an agency before, and they said they would help fill out the paperwork. Once you get the paperwork, there's really nothing for them to help with. Again, it's just very basic information. It just costs 13 pages of basic information on there. And what it's going to have is work history. It's going to they're going to do pretty much a big background check for it. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. I would, in my opinion, I think it's a waste of money to have an attorney fill out those forms with you. I believe my process was probably the best, as for when you go through and do it. Question is, how long is I'll put it up. How long is the K1 taking to process? That's a tricky question. It's supposed to take 6 to 8 months. Right now, for me, it's been, it'll be a year next week. So it all depends. COVID messed everything up. Where I will say is that the CR1 visas are being processed right now, where the K1 is not. And again, that is an embassy by embassy or consulate by consulate decision. It's usually embassy that does it, and it just depends. There are some places that are still doing K1 visas, but Ukraine, unfortunately, is not right now. What I got from my state's senator, or my senator's office, was they hope to do it in spring, reopen the process. What that means, who knows? But that is another issue I would encourage everyone to do, is if you do it yourself, have someone look over it. Make sure after the time period, the 6 months or 8 months is up, they'll give you a time frame when it should be done by. If you still don't, or you're getting close, a week or two, contact your U.S. Senator's office or your representative's office, and they can do what's called a congressional research, they have liaisons that they can speak to and find out what the deal is, why is it taking so long, and usually give the UCSIS or the National Visa Center a kick in the pants to get it going. But again, you can't do that till it's actually the time period is up. let's see, how long is are the spousals taking? As another one. Um, Again, uh, the spousal visa is taking. It can take anywhere from a year to year and a half. William, he was able to get his done in about 8 months. Uh, Myself, I'm still waiting for mine. The embassy is still doing CR1 visas. They're still processing them. They they've decided on a whim or whatever reason to not do K1s. Again, this isn't for any of Trump's executive orders or anything like that. It's all based on whatever consulate or embassy decision on how they want to proceed with this. So, and we'll keep going. And again, if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer as best I can as we go through it. Is it okay? Here's one. Is the process? Is it the same process if I'm not a U.S. citizen or permanent U.S. resident? I believe it is. Being a citizen, I didn't check that. I believe I do know from other people it is better to be if you're a permanent resident. The CR1 process is a lot better off for people than the K1 visa process. I don't know that you can do it. If you can, I do know with everything, U.S. citizens take priority over permanent resident aliens as far as like for green card issuance and all that. So when my fiance does get here, it will take, according to my local office, when I just checked, about 7 months to get her green card. For non-resident aliens, it can take a year and a half to do that. So you are given a little preference if you are a U.S. citizen. Another one for the spouse is marriage in Ukraine accepted in the USA. Yes, it is. Anywhere pretty much in Europe, it is acceptable. There are some countries in Asia where it's not, or I should say it may not, it's just more scrutinized if you come from there. George, no, I won't ignore them. If you have them, I'll try to do my best about going through it. If everything works faster if you're a citizen, I imagine that's true. But again, this process should have been a lot taken care of for myself, and I know it's taken a lot longer with that. So again, going back to the K1 process, again, you have to have your evidence sent in with that. When you are able to make your appointment, you've got to have they will give you a spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, but a list of things that you need to bring with her. She'll have to have the DS-160 already done. You'll have to pay the fee already and have all your ducks in a row when you get there. If you do not have it done, then they will pretty much not issue the visa. You'll have to get back in line to do that. So please make sure that you have everything in line before you go into your appointment. Is it worth marrying a Ukrainian woman? Don't they have bad divorce statistics? Yes, they do. There's a high divorce rate, but there's also a high divorce rate here in the United States. If you look at it, you also have to ask yourself, why are people divorcing in Ukraine? A lot of people, again, money is always the issue. It's usually one of the biggest roots of divorce anywhere, either in Ukraine, where people get married and they find out they can't make it. The man doesn't make any money or won't make money. The woman is being what's called a superwoman, where she's trying to raise the family. She has a job, and the man doesn't work, or they got married too young. There's just a lot of different avenues and reasons why they do have a high divorce statistics. There's a lot of ladies, though, that are in match guarantee that have never been married. Depending on the statistics you look at, women outnumber the men anywhere from 5 to 8 to 1. So there's a lot of extra women that aren't married as well. So hopefully that answers your question. So, along with that, if you do get the K1 visa, she finally gets here, you get married within 90 days, then you have to fill out what's called a form I-45, which is an application to register a permanent residence. So it's a green card. So if they do that, you usually will get it before your second anniversary, marriage anniversary. Then it's good for 2 years. If for some reason it's not granted till after your second anniversary, the lawful permanent resident status without condition is a green card that's valid for 10 years. I know some men question, well, is she going to come over and leave me once she gets her green card? Well, you never know. If you know the person really well, I am very confident my fiance is not going to do that. It could happen, or it could not. When you're getting married, you always take a chance, whether you marry someone from a different country or United States or Canada, that the marriage may not work. So make sure that you're getting married for the right reasons, you have the right chemistry and all that. So in 2 years, what can happen is, if it doesn't work out, if she leaves before that 2 years up, then you don't have to file for an extension for her or do that. So anyway, that's something to keep in mind. If it's over the 2 year where they get a 10-year, then where they get a 10-year green card, then there is no protection for the man. It is as much as that you wouldn't have to renew the green card except for 10 years. She would have legal standing there. She could become a citizen and have all those rights therein. There's another question. Does embassy check social media to validate whether the marriage is authentic or not? No, but in the DS 129F forum, they ask the fiance to put in all her social media accounts. So Facebook, Instagram, there was different ones. So you have to list all that out and for them. So they do check all of that. I don't know if they do it just to validate whether the marriage is authentic or not, but they do check your social media platforms, both the man and the woman, to make sure that there's nothing in there that would raise a red flag. So then with that, let's see if I can get back. The CR1 visa, I'll start talking about that a little bit. When you get that, the green card is already approved. So if you get married, you have your ducks in a row, you do your I-130, you go through the National Visa Center. That again can take a lot longer. National Visa Center for K1 is usually 1 to 2 weeks. For National Visa Center for CR1, is usually about 5 months. They do a lot more digging and a lot more investigation into the CR1 people there at the National Visa Center than they do the K1 because they are giving that green card right away. So the process for the CR1, first you have to marry marry your partner. This needs to be legally binding where it was conducted. You have to send all the same evidence, which is similar to what I explained in the K1 process. It's got to show that there's a genuine relationship, and you have to have all that things that you've been into Ukraine, that again you've breathed the same air, as they say. Again, the piece of paper that is just not enough. If that's all you have, they're going to deny the visa. So make sure that you have plenty of extra stuff in your package that shows the relationship, pictures, anything and everything that shows that you will have the relationship. So then with that, in both cases, you have this final screening interview at the consulate or the embassy, and that's either approved or not approved. So again, when she has her medicals done, you make the appointment for the medicals. They won't even accept an appointment until you have an actual appointment date. So once you have an appointment date with the embassy, then you can schedule your medical. So the medical places, there's only there's I think 2 in Kiev to have that done, and they won't accept a appointment until you have several numbers off your visa and an actual appointment date. So it's not something you can just go do and have it done in waiting. So you have to wait to do that. So again, you do that, you go through all that steps in the consulate. That's the final screening process. So they will ask a bunch of questions. Online you can find around 100 questions that they ask. They're just, a lot of it is just common, just to make sure that you are who you say you are. They're going to ask, what is your fiance's parents' name? What is her siblings' name? How many siblings they have? Does he have pets? What are they? What are their names? Various things like that they will ask, just to make sure that there is a genuine relationship going on. And really, that is pretty much the biggest differences and the things that I can answer for you. So so here's one. When you did travel to Ukraine, which city were you in and how long was your stay? I've gone to Ukraine 3 times. I went to Chernobyl once. I stayed there for 10 days, and then I've been to Kiev twice, and I was there for about 12 days each time. So that's my Ukraine experience. I have other people that I know have gone. I've never met someone go through this process that hasn't been there at least twice. Some men I talked to, they want to just go to Ukraine once. Well, for the most part, you're not going to get your visa approved if you go there just once. They're going to question your relationship, no matter how much documentation you have. So unless she's already had a travel visa and she's come to the United States and you have documentation of that, which it's a lot harder for people in Ukraine to get a US visa or a travel visa. It'll be harder for you to prove that. So again, you usually have to be there at least twice before they'll grant it. So, are there any more questions? I'm trying to see if I've gotten everything there. And hopefully this overview was good. You learned a lot. Again, you have any questions? Um, Here's another question. Since your marriage, how many times have you planning to visit before she comes to the U.S.? Again, it depends. For me, it was twice. Other people I've spoke to have done 2-3 times. I've never found anyone successful that's just been there once, unless the fiance had come to the United States before. That's usually something that just doesn't happen. Here's one. How much money you spent chatting online with your lady? Zero. No. If you're chatting online and you're getting charged, you're getting scammed. That's the bottom line. When you use, like for Match Guarantee, you meet the person in a restaurant, or you go out on a date with them. It's your opportunity to ask them for the contact number. For me, I was able to get her phone number on our first date. We kept in contact. When I came back to the United States, we talked twice, every day and every night, and sent texts. That was another thing that I included in my proof of a verifiable relationship, was text messages that were sent back and forth over many days, different days where you do have a time frame, a time on there where it shows. So that is important. That's something else that can show you and show proof that you have a bona fide relationship. So again, I didn't spend any money chatting online. I was a client of Match Guarantee and went through their process, found my fiance, and have gone through the K1 visa process with that. So as far as chatting online, at that time, when I became a client, they didn't even offer the video dating. It was pretty much come to Ukraine, experience it for yourself, and that's what I did. And it does take quite a leap of faith to do that. Here's another one. Will you visit before she comes to you? I don't know. I've tried multiple times to set up trips, and it's difficult with COVID response. The first time I was going to go back over there, we had a lockdown, and I really didn't want to leave the state and country in that time frame. So pretty much we've been playing it month to month, trying to see what we can do, because we keep on thinking it's going to happen soon. So I haven't made plans to go back over there. We've thought about it, we've talked about it, but she prefers we save our money for the wedding and for the honeymoon and things like that, versus coming back over to Ukraine. Another one. Ukraine Brides Agency. Did you ever hear of the site? No, I haven't. I've used 2 different sites myself, and maybe I've been very lucky to not get scammed, but I've been protected. But I used a different marriage agency out in Nazi, and was very unsuccessful there. Wasn't happy. I got pushed to date women I really didn't want to date, and the ones that they showed me and I was supposedly writing, they weren't interested once I got over there. So that was an eye-opening and expensive process to learn from. And then from there, I went to match guarantee. I canceled my first appointment, my first trip, and because I was still scared, then I decided pretty much, hey, what do I have to lose by doing this? I'm not finding anyone in the United States, so you might as well try it. So here's another one. Did you know anything about the process to get a visa for a child or uh, for an adult child of a potential spouse? If they're over 21, you cannot use either K1 or CR1. Once they are here, they can uh, apply for a visa for their child to come over here for, but as that states, you can't use it if they're under 21, you can use the CR1 or the K1 process to allow them to come over. Can you talk about the travel from where to where and the prices? When I went to Chernobyl, it was very, very, very inexpensive. Kiev was more expensive, but the exchange rate last I looked was 35 to 1. So the dollar goes very far over there. I never spent more than $25 for a meal for two people. So it wasn't very expensive. My hotel cost was around $50 a night, and that's pretty standard. You don't want to go to the Hilton or something like that because most of their clientele are going to be diplomats, and they charge an outrageous rate. You find a regular hotel, a mom and pop type hotel, that kind of thing, you can find a very nice room and be treated by gold, and you get 50, and it's $50 a night. So again, food very inexpensive. In the United States, we always joke about Starbucks on every corner. In Kiev, it seemed like every corner had a McDonald's. There isn't a lot of American fast food over there. They do have a lot of different hamburger restaurants, which they consider American food. But as far as you'll see some KFCs, you'll see McDonald's everywhere again, and Domino's are the three biggest American companies that you'll see over there. Where if you get desperate or you want something that you know what it is for sure, that you can go there. Around Kiev, the nice part is most all the menus are both in English and Russian. So again, in Kiev, English is the language of the diplomats that they all use. So if you stay in that Maidan area without venturing out, and even when I went up to Pershke Lavra, went to a restaurant up there, it was also in English. So, you know, a lot of it is now coming more and more into English that you have. Any of the American restaurants, especially the fast food, McDonald's, and pretty much anyone under 30 speaks great English. You don't have to worry about it. It wasn't a difficult city to get around, to talk to people, to get directions, that kind of thing. You just found a younger person. In Chernobyl, it wasn't that case. I only found one person that spoke English the whole time I was there, so it was a lot different. Kiev was very nice to know. There's another question. A lady that I want to come here has a child that just turned 22 a few days ago. Yeah, unfortunately, she's going to have to come here and establish residency, and then be able to do that in turn. So that's just a unfortunate thing with that. So again, if anyone has any more questions, I'm just about to my hour. I can answer traveling to Kiev, in Kiev, any questions of my process of going through the K1 visa. I have had people ask me if I had to do it all over again, which would I do, the K1 or the CR1? And here's the tricky question. When I first started, I would have said K1. One, it's quicker. Two, it gives the lady the opportunity to really check things out. Now, going through this and having known my fiance for well over a year and going through waiting in this process a year, I would have said a CR1 would have been the way to go. That's what William, who was the other person, they used the CR1, and he was able to get his wife in the country a lot sooner, as you can see. I'm still waiting, and he was able to get his fiance in. They used Rapid Visa, which is a good company. What they do is they do everything for you, and they put it in a file the way the USCIS likes it, and then they send it off for you. It does cost money, extra money, but again, you get service with that. So if you want to do it yourself, I didn't think it was that difficult to do anything yourself. Again, I would encourage you to make sure you run it through a lawyer afterwards if you're going to do it by yourself. It's a couple $100 or $100, $150 is what I spent, and it will put your mind at ease to have someone else check it, give you a list of things to include in their experience, and just an ease off your mind, because what they tell you to have in the document versus what the attorney said to include in the document are two completely different things. The attorney said treat it like almost like your interview in Kiev, have everything in there from the get-go, which is what I did. And my packet was it was 13 pages, but then it had all these pictures, had all these copies of receipts. It had copies of my passport. It had birth certificate, her birth certificate, and all that. Along with that, of course, I said I used priority mail so I could make sure I got a tracking number with it. Plus, you know, that's a lot of personal information out there with your tax returns and your birth certificate and all that. So you want to make sure it's sealed and gets there as soon as you can, so it doesn't happen to fall into the wrong hands. What type of PF cost for the whole process from beginning until the point you're on? So as far as just government costs right now, $995 is all I'm out for the K1 visa process. That's what I've spent for the government. Now, for me, my fiance spoke more lower to intermediate English. We had good conversations and stuff, but she really wanted to become more fluent. So the one good thing that this has is I pay for her to take English lessons that are done first in a classroom situation. Now it's more or less online individual tutoring, but ended up being the same price anyway. So her English has improved dramatically over that time, and I saw that as I want to say it was $30 a month for I think she goes 3 days a week, and to me it's been a worthwhile investment in our relationship. Each time I talk to her, her English is improving time and time again. Again, she still doesn't understand a lot of the slang we use and things like that, but that's to be expected. When you tell a Ukrainian, "Oh, sorry about that, I just put my foot in my mouth," they think you're doing yoga. That's probably the funniest thing I can tell you as far as from my experience, that I used a term that she wasn't familiar with, and she really was like, "What are you saying?" So they don't use slang over there as much in their English day-to-day things. So our sayings, the early bird gets the worm, things like that, just they have no idea what we're talking about, and it sounds pretty funny to them. So that's something to keep in mind when you're talking to your lady, or even out on a date. It's to uh, make sure you talk in as simplistic terms as you can, but make sure you're asking the right questions to get to know her as well. And you can always use Google Translate, even though it's not perfect, but it will help on certain phrases or things. At least you can figure out what you're trying to get to. Um, but again, learning the language is so much better. Right now, the English is doing real well over there. You don't have a lot of people with these thick, like on movies and TVs, these thick Russian accents. I can probably do a better Russian accent than in English than she can. Uh, so they're really learning to speak, and they're speaking from many native tongue people. So their English has come a long ways, and you don't have a lot of bad, big, thick accents, that kind of thing. So, um, anything else uh, before I take off? I'll leave it up for another minute. If anyone wants to chime in and ask a question, uh, sorry if this was really boring. It's a kind of a boring topic, and this is my first live stream doing this kind of thing, so it's not something I'm used to, but we'll see if he asks me to do some more things. We'll see if I man up to do it or not. But anyway, if anyone has any questions, calling once, twice, three times. If not, you can add them in the comments, and I will try to return the call as best you can. Here's one. Do you a contact for me if you want information from Match Guarantee, or if you have questions? The best two informations I can say is you can do info@matchguarantee.com or coaching@matchguarantee.com. And coaching at Match Guarantee, you'll have 6 or 7 people able to respond, all English speaking, that are able to communicate and answer your questions for you. Info, sometimes it's maybe not as quick because that to get into, but you'll still get an answer best you can. But if as far as if you wanted to contact me, if you went to coaching@matchguarantee.com, and guarantee with the Y, that can get sent to me as well. If you have any specific questions about my story or anything like that, if you Google the Match Guarantee website, you'll see my story a couple times. We've done a live stream with me and my fiance. So if you want to check those out, you can do a search, and you can do that. If you're not a member, subscribe. You'll find a lot of helpful information about this, a lot of things I don't know that Anna's covered, I know, in different things that I've been able to ask my fiance about, and she's like, yeah, that's right. So it's just a wealth of information and knowledge being passed on. So use this opportunity to make sure you do and gather all the information you can. Before I sign off, the one thing I would make sure everyone is and understands, this is not a quick process. I talk to guys sometimes that think they're going to go to Ukraine, go there once, and be married and be back within 3 or 4 months. It doesn't work like that. This is going to be at least a year process, no matter if you use the CR1 or the K1 visa. You're going to have to go over there twice. There's just really no way around it unless she has a travel visa to come to the United States. The second thing is, if you do the CR1 or you do the K1, make sure you understand who you're marrying. Make sure you go through all the processes with that. The K1 visa, again, it leaves you a little more flexibility with that. The CR1, I know people that haven't gone through with it have had some problems with that. So, and that was in Brazil versus the Ukraine, but still the same process. They end up not being able to come here, and it just turned into be a big mess. They end up having to get a divorce. The person coming back here didn't have the right paperwork for a legal divorce, so it was all that extra things and drama and stress involved in that. So here's how much did Match Guarantee help you? As far as I don't know what you're asking. As far as if it's with the process, they don't help. They'll maybe guide you some places, but again, you really don't. No one should be able to or needs to help you with the forms. They're basic forms. You just need to know your name, your address, your your date of birth, your phone number, and your work history. And the same for your fiance. You're going to have to know your parents' birthdays and where they were born, that kind of thing, their names, same with hers. It's not a complicated 13-page document, but again, it's just you have to make sure you do it right so it doesn't get kicked back. So anyway, I hope we will have someone from Canada come on and explain the Canadian version of this sometime in the future. But as far as I know, nothing's quite scheduled yet, but I know that's something that we've talked about doing in the future. So with that, again, if you have any questions, I will answer them in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully I didn't bore you to death with this topic, but again, it's a very important topic that people really need to make sure they do their due diligence on and explore and make the right decision for themselves. Okay, and we will see you later. Again, I'm here if you need something. Match Guarantee was here if you need something. Coaching at matchguarantee.com, info at matchguarantee.com, and we can help you out as best we can.